Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Gamechanger Sessions. Today is our 7th live stream. I can't believe how time in some ways flies during COVID. And I'm so delighted that all of you have chosen to listen in again today. For those of you who are new, Gamechanger Sessions is a weekly live stream where we shine light and have deep conversations with people I think have brilliant minds and the warmest hearts to help us get through these interesting times. We really are passionate about talking with people who are creating the future and are going to help us create the future we want post-COVID, and also the people who have some wisdom to share around how we can thrive in this new world and how we deal with uncertainty, change, and all of what we are experiencing right now. So thanks for registering for the series. I will quickly share that next week's guest is Stephen Kotler, who is a award-winning author and journalist, and also one of the leading experts on high performance. He's the executive director of the Flow Research Collective and has written many amazing books, including Stealing Fire, Tomorrowland, and The Rise of Superman. And our theme over the next this week and next week is really about how we can thrive. And it is my biggest pleasure and joy and honor to welcome our guest today. And our guest today is a dear, dear friend who I have learned so much from and just gained so much wisdom from, Ariel Garten. And Ariel is quite a remarkable human. Many people know her as the founder of InteraXon and the creator of the Muse headband, which is a brain sensing headband. And we're definitely going to talk a lot about that. But a little bit about Ariel. She studied neuroscience at the University of Toronto, and she worked in labs at Toronto's Krembil Neuroscience Center, researching Parkinson's disease and hippocampal neurogenesis. But she's not just a science nerd. No, Ariel is this creative spirit. She is a fashion designer and an artist and an incredible mix of science and art. She was also a therapist in private practice for many years. And she worked with Steve Mann, who I know many of you in the tech community who are listening know who that is. She is an incredible person who has really taken this opportunity to commercialize technology that fundamentally disrupts markets. So it is my greatest pleasure to welcome Ariel to our show today. Welcome.
Thank you, Candice. It is a joy and a pleasure to be here. Hello.
Hi, I am really, really honored that you are on this chat with me today. And when I decided I wanted to do this chat, you were one of the first people who came to mind as somebody I really wanted to share, is basically the way I would put it. Because you have been such an incredible gift in my life over the past few years since I've known you. So really, thank you for being here. And how are you doing during this time? Where are you? How is life in a post-COVID world?
Or during COVID world. I'm actually doing amazingly well. I'm in Toronto, Canada, as are you. And I'm currently broadcasting from my kid's bedroom, which is my office while he's downstairs building Lego with his dad. We switch off on the parenting duties.
Excellent.
And I've been really, really well during COVID. My heart is incredibly heavy and sad for the world, but my personal experience has been very uplifted.
It's really great to hear that. And we're going to definitely dive deeper into why that is. I think there's a lot of people, including me, who have really wrestled with how I should be during this time. And even just my language of we should examine later on. But Ariel, you have such a fascinating story. I mean, I just find you to be somebody who is this incredible intersection of many things. And one of the things that is a narrative throughout all the work you've done is this curiosity about the mind. Can you tell us like how this came about for you? Like, why have you been so interested in this all your life?
So the curiosity of the mind to me seems pretty natural because the brain is the foundation of our entire experience of life. You know, everything we think, we feel, we see, we hear, we taste, it is all either created by or mediated by the brain. And as a kid, I was always fascinated by how the world worked. So I was curious, why are tables hard? Why does the thing look that way? And then I recognized that as
Mm-hmm.
fascinating as how the world works, how we work and how we perceive that world and create the experience of the world is an even more fascinating question. So to me, once you understand the brain and how it works, you can have a much greater understanding about your experience as a human and how you can change, shift your own experience and support others through that experience as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's what has drawn me so much to you is just this. Not only, there's a lot of people who are big believers in mindset, but you actually bring the science of our minds to bear in thinking about how our mental models and mindset shape the world. Um, you know, through this curiosity, you did something very, very early that is, may seem common today in 2020, which is, wearable technology and thinking about how technology can actually help our bodies improve. But you created Muse in 2009 or maybe even earlier. What led to the realization that you wanted to do this? Tell us more about that story.
So I was working actually in 2002 in a lab with Dr. Steve Mann. At that point, I was, just beginning my career in neuroscience, and we were working on this early brain-computer interface technology. And my background has always come from both the arts and the sciences. So we were using this early BCI to literally let people interact with music. So we were translating their brain state into sound. And we were creating concerts where people could have an emotional and visceral experience of what was going on in their own minds. And I stood back and said, like, this is incredibly amazing. We're literally interacting with the world directly with our brain. And I think that this can be commercializable. I think that there is a solution here that the world can know about. So I got together with my co-founders, Chris Amony and Trevor Coleman. Both Chris is an incredible technologist and artist simultaneously, and Trevor is amazing at both business and understanding humans and what makes great human experiences. And the three of us set about to commercialize this technology. We didn't initially know that its application was going to be in healthcare and mindfulness. At that point, we were like, this is great tech and we can control, computers with our brains and that'll be amazing. But it turns out controlling computers with your brains actually is not that amazing. And there's not really much that you could do that's really valuable. And our real goal was to do something valuable for the world, to really like move the needle for humanity. And we recognized that if we could get more people meditating, then we could really do something powerful. And the whole problem with meditation is that you don't know what's going on in your mind. And here we had a technology that was showing you literally that you could know what was going on in your mind, know when you were focused and know when you were relaxed. So after going through this really long product exploration using the technology to like thought control beer taps. And we did this crazy project at the Olympics where people could control the lights on the CN Tower with their brain from across the country. And, we let people do all these crazy things with their brains. We realized the real power was actually letting people understand their own mind. And as we were having people focus and relax to try to like power a light bulb, we were actually giving people real-time feedback on their brain and when they were focused and when they were relaxed. And if we really wanted to do something powerful with this, we would teach people to manage their own minds, and that we could do that through meditation.
It just hits such a note for me as somebody who uh, really only got exposed to meditation over the past few years. And I'm still learning on that journey just how powerful that very simple idea of actually understanding what's happening while you're meditating can be. So, certainly for me, what you've done is like truly remarkable. And how are people using it today? Tell us more about sort of the intention of the headband. Do people use it in the same way, or what are the different ways people are using Muse to sort of hone their practices for meditation?
Sure. So I'll explain how it works. So, what Muse does is it gives you real time feedback on your brain, as well as your heart, your breath, and your body during your meditation practice. I actually have one here. This is the Muse. And then
Awesome.
this is actually we have a Muse 2 as well, our latest device. And there are sensors on it that read your brain waves. And as you focus or relax, as you go through your meditation practice, we can translate the sound of your meditation into guiding sounds. So everybody knows that meditation is really good for you, but it's really hard to do. There's like literally nobody sitting inside your head telling you that you're focused or that you're in the meditation zone. There's no little guru in your brain telling you when you're doing it right. And so with Muse, what we can do is we can give you real-time feedback to hear when you're unfocused and hear when your mind is wandering. And the metaphor we use is your mind is like the weather. So when you're thinking, when you're distracted, you actually hear it as stormy. And as you bring yourself to quiet, focused attention, it quiets the storm. So you're getting real-time feedback to know when you're doing it right. And then after the fact, you have data, charts, graphs, scores that actually show you what your brain, heart, breath, and body were doing during your meditation and help you to really understand, start, or hone your practice.
That is really, really amazing. And I think it's very relevant right now, especially during these times when there's so much uncertainty and a lot of people who are facing tremendous amounts of fear and anxiety and stress. Can you talk about the science of meditation and how it actually helps people deal with these emotions that they're facing?
Sure. So there is a ton of science behind meditation. There's over, by now, 2,000 or 3,000 published articles talking about the benefits of meditation on your mind and on your body. How meditation works in the brain is something that we're starting to see some really great evidence on. And in your brain, you have this organ called the amygdala, kind of sits back here, right behind your eyes, above your ears. And it's the part of your brain that's constantly scanning for danger. It's the part of your brain that really wants to know where the danger is at and signal your mind and body when it perceives, and this is the important word, when it perceives something is dangerous. So as you meditate, you're actually able to start to down-regulate the activity of the amygdala, because it's really great to know when there's danger, when the danger is actually in front of you. But our amygdala is really good at constantly presenting us information about those perceived dangers, even when there's no longer a danger present. It hyper reacts in an effort to try to keep us overly safe over and over and over again. That's why when something bad happens, you just ruminate about it and you think about it over and over and over because your amygdala is constantly representing that information back to you. Remember, I told you about that annoying thing? Let me remind you again and again and again and again, even when it's no longer relevant. So in meditation practice, you're actually strengthening a part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex, this guy right up here. And it's the part of your brain associated with attention, organization, wisdom, higher order processes. It's the thing that separates us from most other animals, the fact that we have a highly developed prefrontal cortex. So meditation, you're strengthening your prefrontal cortex, and your prefrontal cortex is then able to down-regulate your amygdala. It's kind of like the prefrontal cortex is the parent who's able to see really what's going on and make smart decisions. And so it's scanning the environment. It's saying like, hey, actually the danger is no longer here. Amygdala, shh, calm down. It's all good. It's all okay. There are also many other areas of the brain that meditation strengthens that I'm happy to dive into.
No, I think it's so important right now. So, I'm really curious. Have you seen a big uptick in sort of Muse sales or activity or wearing? Like, are people who are facing this level of stress, are you seeing that translate into the way people are using meditation devices like Muse?
Yes, 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 and yes. So we have both a dramatic increase in the number of new users coming on board, and sales, and also a dramatic increase in existing meditators coming back to their practice and doing more and more meditation. We're also seeing an interesting shift in the kinds of meditations that people are doing. So we have a large collection of guided meditations. And prior to COVID, we were seeing people, the number one meditation was like manifesting your perfect life. And now the number one meditation is dealing with uncertainty. The number 2 is calming the mind. And the number 3 is from frazzled to focused. So we're really seeing the kind of content people are trying to consume and that the issues that they're using meditation to manage here and now shifting in a really positive way to help people with what's going on in front of them.
Mm-hmm. I can definitely understand that. And I'm really curious. I know one of the things that connects us is that we're, both moms, and you have a gorgeous little boy, Miro, who I've seen once in a while. How is meditation relevant for kids right now, and also for moms who are, I know for myself, experiencing this pull between being at home and working and sort of trying to be present with my kids is not easy. And my kids themselves just dealing with COVID. How is meditation? How are you using meditation in those contexts?
Meditation has been incredibly helpful. I'm so thankful that I've clocked the hours to build the practice and build the skills. But even if you haven't, starting now helps. So I know for me as a mom, I am being pulled in multiple directions and my heart is being pulled. I need to work. It's my job. That's what I do. I also need to pay attention to my kid who's home, and I need to not have guilt about him watching tablet for 3+ hours a day when that's sometimes the only thing that you can do. And so meditation has been a key skill to help me not yell at my child at moments when I feel overwhelmed, B, help me manage my own overwhelm, and C, help me stay focused. And then when I'm with him, to actually really be present with him. Because previously when you'd go to work and you were at work and you came home and you were home, it was much easier to make the mental divide between I'm at work and now it's time with my kids. And now literally weekends have no more meaning. It doesn't matter what day of the week it is. It's me and my kid and my work. And so being able to shut down the work voice in my own head and say, I'm here with, now's my 3 hours to play. And that's just what I'm going to do. And if the work voice comes in, it's like, nope, you're not required. This is playtime. This is when I'm here with him. And also, the lessons about safety that meditation have taught me have been so key to helping me feel safe and helping him feel safe and deal with the emotions that have been involved in this and give him the tools and the skills to be able to calm his own little mind and body.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
His own little mind and body.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, absolutely. And I think that's really interesting because we've had some discussions around this, which is this idea of safety and this idea of certainty and uncertainty. Tell me more about what you mean by that.
So going back to the organ in our head, the amygdala, the thing that's constantly scanning for unsafety, our amygdalas have all been in hyperdrive. We have been told that there is a massive threat, which there is. Absolutely true. There's a threat, but we are also in a position where we know the things that we need to do to keep ourselves safe. You wash your hands, you stay in your home when appointed to, you manage your groceries, you wear protection, you do these things that keep you safe. And once you've done these things, your amygdala can stop screaming at you. But so many of us are in this, and I even was early on, I was in this position in the first few days of insane levels of anxiety. My anxiety floor had just risen way up, and I had to stop and really have an engagement with myself and say, you know what? Actually, we are safe. We have done the things to be safe. We don't need to be anxious right now. And that was really kind of revelatory. Even though there is something with, real consequences going on, I have taken the precautions and I do not need to be anxious. I do not need this floor of anxiety at this moment. And as time is worn on and we are, even more certain about the things that you reasonably do to keep yourself safe, and we've all settled into our routines, in our homes or going out, whatever your routine happens to be, we are in a place where we no longer need this heightened level of anxiety inside of us. So your amygdala wants to keep informing you that there's a danger that you can't forget. And frankly, while you're sitting in your home safely, you are allowed to forget. You can forget. You can let your body go, it's okay, we can calm right down now. It's okay, the moderate level of anxiety that I'm currently feeling constantly is not serving me. It can calm down now. And frankly, when you're in a place where your body is at greater peace, you boosting your immunity. You're able to make better decisions. You're able to act out of wisdom, really make the wise choices for yourself, because there are things you should be doing. And that is what keeps you safe, not constantly having a, anxiety button screaming inside of you. And it's that shift in mentality to say, like, even though my mind and body might be giving me these messages, I can give it different messages. I can give it messages of calm, safety, and peace, and that's going to be okay for me. Actually, that's going to be better for me. That's going to allow me to show up more effectively for my kids. That's going to give me more resources to help the community around me. That's going to give me a wiser perspective to act from. And so, the personal practice that I've been doing is imbuing myself with safety and sensations of safety. And I've been guiding these practices for others, and it's been incredibly powerful to truly retrain your brain to approach the situation from a place that's a lot more productive.
I think that is so profound. And I know for me, I should share, if it's okay with you, Ariel, we're in a mastermind together. And it's such a joy that I get to see Ariel on a regular basis. But I remember the day that you said, you feel joy, because we always sort of go around, how are we doing in COVID? And it gave me permission to feel or look or seek joy, as opposed to, be overwhelmed. And so I just want to first thank you for that, because you literally, by the practices you are doing for yourself, by being joyful or feeling safe, it actually ripples down or ripples across when you project that energy. And, we have a lot of business leaders and tech leaders on this call today. And I think that is actually a really, really important element of leadership, is how you can create a style, an environment, energy that allows people to not be anxious, so that they can be more productive. So more a comment to just say thank you. But maybe the second question is really around leadership. Why does this matter in the context of leadership for you?
So as a leader, it is my job to enhance the safety and trust of my team so that they can perform at their best and be who they are. From a leadership perspective, creating an environment in which people feel like they are trusted and truly are trusted, and an environment in which they are safe and truly feel they are safe with you, that they are safe to say what they want, do what they want. That is the place where people do their best work. That is the place where people flourish as humans. And, we know from child psychology work, when a child has secure attachment, when they feel a secure and safe bond with their parent, that is when they were most able to go out and boldly explore the world and be their best self, be their confident self, and fail quickly and not hide their failures and be able to work productively. So, I just led my team this morning on a 10-minute laughter yoga session. We do meditations together as a team every Tuesday in our all-team stand-up. We have different leaders either from the community or inside the company leading our group meditations. And I chose today to do laughter, because laughter builds your immunity. It takes you out of fight and flight. It builds trust in another, because when you're laughing with people, creating connection, you are inherently trusting the people that you're willing to laugh with. And laughter is just your entire perspective on the day. Yeah, it's perspective on the day. And I have been really just allowing myself to laugh these days. I tickle parties with my kid. I'll be like, tickle party time! And he runs down and we have tickle parties together. And we just laugh. We'll have laugh parties. And it has changed the perspective on living inside of a pandemic. Yes, the world is very difficult right now. There's absolutely nothing taking away from that truth. There's nothing taking away from, our own ability and desire to do something about that truth and acting on it whenever we can. But our own worlds, our internal worlds, don't need to suck. We don't need to put ourselves in purgatory. If you're living in a relatively comfortable environment, however you define that, you should allow yourself to thrive. And your thriving is the thing that's going to buoy your family, is the thing that's going to buoy your support system around you, is the thing that's going to, give you the energy to come up with better ideas for the world. And so I've really allowed myself in this time to love my own experience of it. And, honestly, there's a little bit of guilt when I say that. It's like, are you allowed to be enjoying yourself now? And the answer is yes. So long as you're not avoiding your other responsibilities, so long as you're not helping people, I have been just counting my blessings here. I have been with my kid in just the most sheer delight. I'm so happy I get to be with him now. We are allowed to experience that. And when we open up and when we, let go of the grips a little bit, it's okay. It's okay to laugh. It's good to.
I think it is such I'm just so glad that you're sharing this, because I know I just go back to this mastermind, which I want to talk a little bit about. But when you allowed us to laugh, or you actually led that exercise, which was really simple, which is just like start laughing, people. And it really is profound how that changes. It changes how you respond to the world. So, I love this message, and I really am encouraged by just the results that I personally have had from sort of bringing this idea that joy and the situation, like you can have joy and also be mindful of others in the situation. I want to talk a little bit about the concept of masterminds, actually, and this idea of human connection and shared experience. And it's really thanks to our very good friend, Natalie Ruskin, who I'll just give a shout out to, who created this for us. But what's the science, of that? Even from a therapy perspective, having a group of people that you can share with, what do we know about that?
We know that when you have a strong social support network, when you have a group of people that you can share with, particularly those that you can share with vulnerably, people who see you for who you are, regardless of your faults, that is when your body is able to excel. That is when you are able to live longer. I mean, there's the obvious implications like reduction in anxiety and depression that we see in study after study, but we also see increases in longevity, reductions in rates of heart disease and chronic conditions. And it's quite profound, the impact that strong social connections have. And actually, in a number of studies, strong social connections are one of the greatest predictors of longevity and health.
I totally get that. That is really, really interesting. So I want to shift dials, because when I think about you in so many contexts. And that's what I love, is you're this multidisciplinary artist, entrepreneur, creative, scientist, and I'm fascinated by it. And in so many ways, you've given me permission to see myself as not just one thing in one box, but as a creative being. And I want to sort of dive into this. Like, tell me more about this choice and your sets of beliefs that allowed you to go from scientist, fashion designer, tech entrepreneur, creative. What gave you permission? How did you allow yourself?
I think, first of all, thank you. That's incredibly sweet and kind. Thank you. And I think the same of you. And in terms of the permission, I came from a background where my parents were entrepreneurs. So there was always the permission to be an entrepreneur. And my mom was an artist. And I would see her just imagine something and create it on a canvas, to really take something from nothing and create it. And I was fortunate enough to have incredibly strong, unconditional love from my mother and encouragement to be who I was and to, be able to create what I wanted to create. And I was given spaces to try and fail, and to really be reinforced for the act of being me. And that just gave me this extraordinary confidence, like unbelievable confidence, and the deep belief that I could excel at and be whatever I wanted to be. And so I set out to do that. And I didn't always have all the skills and I generally didn't have many of the skills and capabilities at the get-go. As a fashion designer who hated sewing, and sucked at sewing, but I, went out at the age of 20, I don't know, probably just 20, and hired a dressmaker and said, "Can you help me? Can you work with me? Can you teach me? Can we figure this out?" I went out and I took my clothing store to store in Toronto and said, "Hi, I'm 16 years old. Here's my clothing line. Do you want to sell it? Because I think it's great and other people seem to like it too." I've always just had this sense of freedom that I am allowed to go out in the world and do. And typically when I do, and do it with honesty and integrity and the desire to do something good, people support that and they say, hey, I see you're trying. Let me help. Hey, I see you're trying. That's really cool. This is going to suck. Why don't you try this instead? And I probably, had a lot more ego early on. So I was less able to hear feedback in the right ways, or I was less able to recover when things didn't work. But I just had this belief in myself that it was going to work out. And I probably had a very quiet inner critic. And the combination of all of these things allowed me to explore and play and experiment. And that exploration has worked out extremely well. And I think when you're focused on trying to do something that is good for the world, Muse was this insane idea that this could be possible. But by believing in something that really was going to be helpful, I was able to bring together the team that actually sorry, tickling my throat, that actually could make it possible. I was able to galvanize the individuals who had the skills and capabilities, who together, wanted to create this vision with me. And it's having belief and having vision that you can do it, that the people around you can do it, that it can be done, that should be done, that moves the world forward.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's so inspiring in so many ways. And, what I'm also really excited by is just living at the intersection of seemingly disparate things. So, I'm curious around, would you have had the ideas for Muse had you not explored the world of fashion and art and science, in the same way? And, our society is so siloed in its way of educating people. So I'm really interested in sort of what you think some of the benefits of living at the intersection of things are, and what some of the challenges are, right? If any.
There are both. So when I was a teenager, I excelled at both arts and science. I was the designer for the school play, I was in the fashion shows, and I also had a job in a research lab doing embryonic stem cell research on knockout mice in 1998 as like a super junior co-op research assistant. And people would tell me that you could not do both. You couldn't be an artist and a scientist. You'd have to choose. And it seems nuts to me now that somebody would say that. I'm 40, and not that long ago, 20 years ago, that was still the prevalent view, that you had to choose if you were going to be an artist or a scientist. And to me, the kind of creativity that was required in, making a garment or an artwork was the same as that was required in a science experiment. And the kind of rigor required in making a garment was also, patterns are very precise. There was a precision that was also required for science. You need both parts, the proverbial left brain and right brain, even though the separation is not quite that clear in actual science. And because I was able to pull together these threads from both sides, from the art, the experience of life, the understanding of human emotion and the creation of beautiful human experience, and I was able to understand the hard technical side, not as a technician. So I could never code, and I actually didn't have a background in technology. That really required Chris Amity, my co-founder. But I had the neuroscience background. And because I was able to pull together these two worlds, we could create something that you wouldn't have thought of before. That you could have a device based on hard science that reads your brain that also gives you this beautiful human emotional experience of the self. And I think as technology is moving forward faster and faster, it is essential for technology to deeply understand the human and to create experiences that are deeply human and enhance humanity. Technology is useless if it doesn't take ourselves and our human experience and the enhancement of that, not just into account, but right at its forefront.
You're touching on topics that are very near and dear to my heart. And, I think that's so interesting. And thank you for sharing sort of how those dualities, played out. I think there's a really interesting duality right now with technology specifically. And both of us have lived in the worlds of technology for a while. What are your thoughts on technology's role in society moving forward? Have they shifted or changed, in the last 10 years? I think we're living in a world where there's very little, our attention is greatly consumed by technology. And yet technology can be helpful. How do you sort of think about technology moving forward?
So technology is incredibly helpful. It is thanks to technology that we're able to have this call. It is thanks to technology that I'm able to have clean water. I mean, anybody who disses technology is not understanding all of the ramifications and benefits that it frees up in our life, and that the time and the space that it gives us. And I think in COVID, we particularly have felt the positive impacts of technology as we're able to stay connected to one another, as we're able to stay connected to information, as we're able to, access tools and techniques and things that we need to live better lives. It is technology that's going to ultimately help us overcome COVID. It's technology that's kept people alive during COVID. It's technology that's disseminated information. Like it's ridiculous to downplay technology. However, there is a political and a, capitalistic application of technology that is not particularly helpful. So we have to learn to discern between the value of technology, which is unbelievably massive, to accept the fact that we as humans are co-evolving with our technology. And that's also not a bad thing. It is giving us great advantage as a species, great ability to connect and communicate, great ability to do more than we could before. But it has limitations, both in its environmental impact. We have to understand the impact on the planet, both in its impact on our attention and its ability for it to be manipulated politically, and its ability for it to be another vehicle to try to essentially monetize the humans who are utilizing it. So when technology is in service of somebody else's capital benefit at the exclusion of the human benefit, then we have a problem. Technology is deeply in service of humanity, but when people are simply trying to make money off of our eyeballs or attention, or the capitalistic good is coming before the human good, that's when we run into problems.
I really love what you said, when the capitalistic good is coming in front of the human good. I think that's a really eloquent way of expressing something. And what's very clear about your story is that you started Muse to help people, and you monetized it because it did its job of helping people. And I think that's really, really important for people to recognize. And I, like you, I'm a huge believer in technology, but want to be mindful of its impact. So I know we don't have that much more time. So I'm going to ask one or two more questions. And then if anybody, there's some really great questions being posted on our Q&A. And so I want to leave enough time to get to those. But the last topic I want to really talk about, because you are so inspiring to so many people, certainly myself included, is you really understand this idea of the inner critic, right? And you have certainly made me very aware of my own inner critic. And I think in a world where people do require a lot more agency and entrepreneurial activity, learning learning how to silence this guy is really important. Can you please share sort of what you've learned around inner critics and how to silence them?
So, what is the inner critic? The inner critic is that little voice in your head that's constantly telling you not nice things about you. It's kind of like that little jerk that's living rent-free inside your head that's telling you things like, you're not good enough, you didn't do it well enough, that was stupid, you shouldn't have said that, they won't like you, etc., etc., etc. I bet you each of our inner critics have told us, a minimum of 20 things this morning, possibly in excess of 200. And it's this little voice that we feel like is just supposed to be there. It's a voice we think is supposed to be in our head. But actually, we don't need it. We think it pushes us forward and drives us to do great things. But actually, it doesn't. It just holds us back and demotivates us and makes it much harder to do all the things you want to do in life, and leaves us, frankly, feeling a little bit shitty about ourselves most of the time when we don't need to. And so, one of my great missions in life is to teach people that you don't need to abide by the content in your own head, particularly when it's saying negative things about you. And so I have this awesome exercise, which I hope we have time to guide everyone through. If not, I can share a link where you can find it, to teach you to silence that inner critic and really empower yourself to overcome the jail that most of us have created in our own mind that makes us feel a little bit unworthy constantly.
Amazing. So here's what I suggest. Why don't we head over to the awesome questions that we have, and then at the end of the episode, so if anybody wants to stay online after 2:00 and you're not running to a meeting, Ariel, would you run people through the inner critic exercise?
I would love to.
Okay, awesome. So let's do that. So I am going to take a look at some of the questions that we have. There's some really, really good ones. The first one is, one second, I have it right here. I really enjoyed the connection you made between leadership and the permission to be joyful. Can Ariel make the link between joy and kindness?
Okay, so the link there is, it goes through fear. So when we are in fear, when we're in fight or flight, it becomes very difficult sometimes to be kind to people. There are actually two responses to stress and threat. One is the fight or flight, which is literally, I want to fight you or run away or shut down. And the other is tend and befriend. So some people tend towards this tend and befriend response. So some people under stress actually want to reach out, make connection, and help others. But the vast majority of people end up in fight or flight. When you are in fight or flight, it is antithetical to be nice to people, because you are in a place where you want to be defending yourself, where you want to be defending your own territory. It's why scarcity thinking leads us to really other the other. It's why scarcity thinking leads us to say, like, oh no, there's a small amount of resources. I need to hoard them for myself. I can't possibly share them with you, because then I won't have enough. I won't survive, and I need to, ensure my survival. When we are able to shut down the fear response, when we're able to overcome scarcity thinking, kindness is something that emerges, and joy is something that emerges. The ability to be joyful means that you are in a place where you are not feeling immediately threatened at that moment. When you are in a place where you were able to be generous, when you're a place where you were able to want to spread your joy to other people, to be kind, to be engaged, to be connected, to be sharing. So, if you're the small percentage of the population for whom stress creates tend and befriend, then, there's a beautiful line between joy and kindness and stress for you. If you are not, then you probably need to work a little bit harder to overcome those natural instincts to want to shut down and close off, and to instead allow yourself to open up, to feel joy, and to feel with them the opportunity to shine that light out to others, to know that it's safe to feel alive, to know that it's safe to reach out to others who are alive too, to be kind, to share, to engage, and to connect.
Amazing. I think that's such a great, thank you for asking that question, because it is such a great answer. My second question that I have here is, how do we create a better balance between capitalistic and human value? Is there a measure for human value in your mind?
Oh, is there a measure for human values? Can we create a KPI for human value? That's actually a fascinating question. And I belong to two different happiness movements who are actually trying to create KPIs around happiness. There is a World Happiness Index. Happiness is still not a direct measure of human value. That is like, the outcome of the human emotion. You presume that somebody who is valued and who is doing well is also going to increase their happiness. I haven't actually considered what KPIs for human value look like. We're certainly in a position where we need to be balancing our economic success with our human flourishing. And we have certainly seen a fascinating thing happen in this pandemic, which is for, one of the first times in human history in this obvious way, our governments have stood up and said, we want to put the health of our populace above economic success. And that's massive. That is massive. People have said, it's going to damage the economy. It's going to damage the stock market. We're going to take all of those hits. We're going to try to shore it up best we can, but we need to put human health in and ahead of this. They didn't really include human happiness, but the presumption is that if you have human health, then you will have human happiness, and ultimately you can restart an economy. And so I don't have any magic answers as how to, successfully balance this human versus capital question. I certainly agree that that a healthy and flourishing economy does create a healthy and flourishing human existence. And how we find the right levers to ensure that humans are put first, that we're paid fairly, that we're given, proper working hours, that we're able to spend time with our families, that we're able to do all of these things and create a successful economic gains that then trickle down to everybody. These are questions people much smarter than I have been chewing over for a long time.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I have a really great question here, which is for someone who has not had a secure attachment kind of parenting, what can we do to develop qualities of secure attachment so as to better impact our relationships and self-esteem?
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great question. So there are a number of different forms of attachment. There's secure attachment, there's insecure attachment, there's avoidant. So, the granulations are not quite as clear as secure, insecure. You can look at like polyvagal theory, Stephen Tatkin's pact. There are a number of different great psychotherapeutic models for relationships that look at these different qualities of attachment. And as an adult, you can actually understand your attachment style and understand your partner's attachment style. I know for me, I love to co-regulate with somebody. If I'm feeling down, I want a big hug. I want to engage with somebody. My partner's style is very different, and that's a result of his upbringing. And understanding those differences doesn't make one good or one bad. It makes it easier to navigate a relationship. And then there are exercises that you can do that allow you to kind of refill that bucket. And so either working with a psychotherapist or on your own, looking at some of the research, you can do things that will literally train you to feel more secure and safe in the here and now, and more secure and safe in your relationships.
Amazing. Thank you. I think that's super helpful. So the next question I have, which I think is a great question, especially since I have kids too, meditation would be an incredible tool for children to cope with so much that they don't understand. Is there an age at which you feel meditation can be learned to the point that the practice is actually effective?
So meditation has lots of different components. One of the components of meditation is simply understanding your emotions and being able to observe your emotions. And so that can start from a really young age. You can start, a child as early as 1, as they're crying, just, telling them what may be going on inside of them. I see that you're feeling sad, and allow them to understand, label, and note their emotions as well. Create space for their emotions. I see you're feeling sad, and that's okay. We can just sit with it. So at a super young age, you can start to guide them through some of the principles. I started with my child at about 1.5 with deep breaths. So when he would want something, I would say, let's do 3 deep breaths before you get there. And then I would show him and reflect to him how he felt afterwards. You feel calmer, don't you? Yes. And then start to, really anchor that experience. When you breathe deeply and you take time to calm down, you feel better. And when he would get upset, I'd be like, what are the things you can do to feel better? You can take deep breaths, you can X, Y, and Z, until he would narrate themselves. By about 3, they can meditate with you for 10 seconds. It's not real meditation, but, they can just sort of sit there for a moment and breathe. And then you just keep working that practice. There's lots of great guided meditations for kids. We have an app called Meditation Studio that has kids meditations and kids sleep meditations. And by the age of 5, 6, 7, they can start to really get it and really start the practice of regularly applying just moments of calm in their life, finding themselves, observing their breath, observing their emotions, accepting what is. And it's beautiful to watch.
That's awesome. And I know personally, like, it is mind blowing what just those few breaths or giving kids space to sort of do what you're saying, what message that sends, and what the impact is in your family when that happens versus what often also happens sometimes, which is screaming and the rest of it. So thank
Which will
you.
still
So
happen. And that's
yes,
okay.
totally. We're all human at times, but it's so powerful to learn these tools. So I'm going to ask one last question from the audience, and then we're going to wrap it up. And for those who would like to stay, Ariel is going to walk us through a really powerful inner critic exercise. So the last question I have here that I'm very excited to share is, where is it? I just lost it. 1 second. It is over here. It is from Faith, who is a 16-year-old innovator from Boston. And she's really interested in using BCIs to treat previously untreatable mental illnesses. She'd love if Ariel could share with us one or two of the women in STEM she looked up to growing up, as well as how female leaders can empower more young women to become passionate about business and STEM.
Oh, that's awesome. Hi. Nice to be seeing you. And hi to all the audience. So growing up, when I was growing up, there really wasn't a conversation about female leaders in STEM. Today we have made a great effort to taught out many female leaders in STEM and to have them stand before you and to look back at our history of female leaders in STEM, like Ada Lovelace, and recognize them. When I was a kid, none of that existed. There was no posters in my hallway of, the great women of science going on the way to your math class. That just didn't happen. So today we're lucky enough to have many female leaders in STEM, many amazing astronauts, many amazing technologists, many amazing figures from the past. And I'm also proud to be standing among them and to help and support other young women to understand that we can all just be leaders in STEM, to bring lots of female leaders forward, whether you're an astronaut like Roberta Bondar, whether you are, like Esther Dyson and, innovator in computer science. There's so many amazing, amazing women who have paved the way for it to be just normal to be a female leader in STEM. So I'm excited that Faith, you're on board, and that, all of the daughters of the people listening and the people listening today are all here to be great female leaders in STEM or in any other place.
I love that. And on that note, I'm just going to wrap up our show before we jump into your wonderful exercise. So a huge thank you to Ariel. It is such a joy to have a dear friend on the show who has really impacted my life in the most profound ways, giving me permission to be joyful and creative and to learn how to silence my inner critic. And if you want more of Ariel, please listen to her amazing podcast, which I certainly have signed up for. It's called Untangle. It's a brain health podcast where Ariel actually interviews experts in the fields of mindfulness, neuroscience, leadership, and so much more. So it's called Untangle. Please follow her. And thanks so much, Ariel. Yes, and your co-host, Patricia Karpus. Thank you. So thank you for being on our show today and sharing so many amazing ways of both how we create the future and how we thrive in this future. We're really committed to shining the light on people like you. And a quick thank you, because there's a lot of people who have been amazing in helping us put these live sessions together. Our production partner, eThere Live. You guys are awesome. You make our show look amazing. And it's executive produced by Corey Marr. And a special thanks to Marone Tadas, and also to our live stream series partners, Elevate, CBC Toronto, Toronto Life, Talk Boutique, Artery, and York University. Thank you guys so much for being great partners. And all of you, next week, Tuesday again, because of the long weekend, we have Stephen Kotler at 1 p.m., who's going to talk to us about the science of getting into that amazing state of flow. So thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for Ariel's inner critic exercise. Have a great afternoon. Okay, thank you so much, Ariel. So for those who are still listening, I am going to invite Ariel to do this amazing exercise that has been so helpful for me.
Thank you.
Over to you.
Awesome, Candice. And hello, everyone. So for anyone still listening, we are going to do a very, very useful exercise to help you kill your inner critic. And as I mentioned before, the inner critic is that little voice who is just constantly telling you not nice things about you, and you actually don't need it. It's actually not helpful to hear this voice disempowering you constantly. And there's something you can do about it. So we're going to do a quick little exercise that's going to show you your inner critic and empower you to push it away. Now, I'm going to want you to just stare at something blank in front of you. It can be just a blank wall. It can be the space behind me on the camera, just a blank area. And on that blank area, I want you to put your inner critic. And that, I'm hearing myself, and I think I unplugged. 1 second. Just half a second. I'm noticing that I am getting myself in the audio here. It's okay. So back to the inner critic. So choose a blank spot on the wall, and I want you to put an image of your inner critic there. Now, for some people, this might be a gray cloud or a scary monster or a toad. Just choose an image that to you says your inner critic, like a little character. And he can look funny and weird and cartoonish. And if you can't think of anything, just choose a gray cloud. It doesn't really matter what it looks like. Now, I want you to take your fingers like this and squish him. Make him a little bit smaller. Put your fingers on either side of that inner critic and just make him smaller. Oh, yeah. How does that feel? Yeah, a little bit of relief there. A little bit of a release. Now I want you to think of something that your inner critic has told you today. So for me, my inner critic told me that my hair looks stupid. It's a thing my inner critic is constantly telling me. It's this little flippy part over here. And I'm like, it just won't, it just don't look as good as it could. So I want you to think of one thing that your inner critic told you today. It might be that you were stupid, you shouldn't have done that, it'll turn out badly. These are all familiar things that we hear in our own heads. Now I want you to think of somebody in your life that you really love. Your best friend, your partner, your dog, your kid, and have yourself walking down the street with that person that you really love. So in my visualization, I'm walking down the street with my best friend. And then a stranger comes up to that person you love and tells them the thing that your inner critic told you today. Whoa. So a stranger just walked up to my best friend and told her that her hair looks stupid. How do you respond when a stranger tells your friend that thing? Are you angry? Probably. Do you feel defensive? Probably. I know for me, I'm like, oh my God, you just told my girlfriend her hair looks stupid? She's gorgeous. You're crazy. What are you talking about? Buzz off. Get lost. Get out of town. So take a minute to run that scenario yourself. A stranger tells your bestie something awful that your head told you today. Now, that anger that you feel at this moment, that defensiveness, that desire to really protect your friend, we're going to take it and we're going to direct it at the inner critic on the wall. Because frankly, that little jerk has told you really cruel things all day long. And you know what? He or she has no right. Those things were no more true than that your best friend's hair is awful. Come on. Those things are no more useful, no more pleasant to hear. So I want you to take that anger and right now, don't worry, I can't hear you, direct it at the inner critic. You can tell it whatever you want to tell that stranger in the street. Buzz off! Get lost! For me, it's probably going to be F right off. And you're allowed to just say it in your head or out loud. How does that feel? Yep. Bit of relief. Yeah. So you have just externalized your inner critic, taken it out of your head, and been able to stand up for yourself and push back against the voice. And for some of you, for the very first time in your life, you've pushed back against that voice. And you are allowed to push back against that voice anytime you hear it, because it's not serving you, it's not helpful, it's not making your work better, and it's not making you more motivated or more productive. If you want proof as to why, you can ask me later and I can take you through more of it. So we're going to once more just put our hands on either side of that little critic and squish him down and flick him away. Now, anytime you hear that voice return into your head, you're going to do the same thing. Take it, put it on the wall, tell it to get lost, flick it away. And over and over and over again, that voice is going to get quieter and quieter the more you do this practice. Because we are all amazing, capable, and frankly, beautiful creatures. And we do not need that voice holding us back in any way. Back to you, Candice.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I definitely saw my inner critic on the wall, and I definitely crushed him a little bit thanks to you. So thank you so much, Ariel. Always a pleasure. Keep doing the amazing work you're doing in the world. You're such a light, and I feel so privileged to consider you a great friend. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and have a wonderful week. Thanks, Ariel.
Awesome. That was great. That was a lot of fun.